There we go. All right, so President's Workshop. Like we said, it's probably not going to be the full 2 hours. We're just going to go over a couple bits and bobs that are going to be really important to you throughout the year, just some information on Marrow as an entity, and also go over some common president and committee volunteer issues, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kick it off with some donor recruitment info. Quick update. Last year, from September to now, September, you have recruited an incredible 1,423 potential lifesavers, and that is only online, which is absolutely amazing, seeing the year that everyone's had. So it's been really fantastic to see Marrow groups become so adaptable and really flexible in light of whatever challenge has been thrown at them. So we've been really amazed by the kind of work that you guys have done, whether or not you were super active last year or even just did a little bit. It was really fantastic to see everyone keep going. And since then, we've actually managed to restart our IRL donor recruitment as well. So we've been restarting in-person events. And while we know that that can be daunting, we have had multiple sessions already run. So for example, we've had Exeter, Leicester, Durham, a few others. Glasgow ran an event as well, and Bangor ran one today. So there's been lots of events running already. They've been all going really well. So we're happy to see that going back and starting back up. Not everybody is trained on the new processes yet. We've had to introduce new guidance and new procedures to adapt to COVID. And we've gone mostly paperless now as well. So there's digital application forms. And to make sure that everybody's trained in all the new procedures, we've got multiple sessions lined up this week for you to learn about everything new. So these are compulsory for everybody on committee, whether you whether you put this into the group or whether people already signed up. Please do make sure that your committee goes to at least one of the donor recruitment quality sessions. So that's one role donor recruitment session. That's not the compulsory one. It's the donor recruitment quality training one. And then also one MADMIN workshop, which is going to be really important in terms of safeguarding GDPR. People need to know about that. And then at the actual in-person conference, whether or not you're going to that, we will also have a mock event so that you guys can get used to kind of a more hands-on process of doing the donor recruitment event. So hopefully by the end of this week, you'll all have gotten the hang of it and you're all going to be smashing out donor recruitment events left, right, and center. And we're really excited for that. So I really just wanted to know from you guys whether you've already got any events booked in, whether you've got any donor recruitment planned, and also, just what your thoughts are on donor recruitment in the coming weeks.
Do you want me to go first? So with our freshers stall that we've got this Thursday, we're doing kind of a joint, trying to get volunteers and doing some donor recruitment. We are honestly struggling a little bit at the moment to kind of get things booked. We're having a lot of pushback because I know that we had, obviously I wasn't here last year, but the year when I was donor recruitment, just with places kind of not wanting to do hold events. We have got some people now that we're in contact with, and we're trying to push on doing some stuff with societies, do collaborations with them. I was going to ask, sorry, you can answer this later because I know this isn't really now, but is there anything planned still for doing kind of a virtual events, or having the links like we had with the Lockdown Life is Saver Challenge? Because I know that if we are kind of continuing to struggle like we are at the moment, we might struggle with getting donor recruitment events in person.
So you should be able to use all your links as usual. So that link should still be going on as it would have last year. Okay. So you're still able to use that. You're still able to put on virtual events. We're not going to pressure anybody into running in-person events if they're not comfortable with that. That's absolutely not a must. It's just this opportunity is here now. If you want to run in-person events, we're always going to encourage it. But if you're not able to run in-person events, or if you aren't comfortable with it yet, then that's also completely fine. And you can just use the same online link that you've had this whole time, and we'll keep counting those signups towards your totals as well.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
And we can work them out as well. So if you work out, if you're like, oh, well, I want to know how many we've recruited from September, not since the link went live, then we can easily pull, all of that data is really easy to pull. Or if you're like, I want to know how many signed up within this week, like any of that data we can get for you. So don't worry about using that link and it sort of getting lost in past numbers or whatever they're through signed up and that. We can pull that data at any point.
Yes, we do really want to do in-person events, but yeah, I think the uni are being a bit standoffish about us letting us book things, but hopefully we'll get through anyway.
It's really interesting because different universities are giving like totally different messagings, and even like different buildings on campuses seem to be giving different messages as well. So some buildings will be like, yeah, everything's back to normal, don't worry about it. And then some buildings will be like, oh no, we don't do that. So that makes it extra difficult. But I'm hoping that maybe if you give it a few weeks, freshers is out the way, people have calmed down a bit and they've seen people on campus and everything's not been locked down again. Well, hopefully that is what is going to happen. Then people will be more, it might be because you're so ahead of the game with booking that they're turning you down. Maybe if you try again in a few weeks, it'll be a bit better. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, potentially.
Does anyone else want to say anything on that still?
Yeah, we're basically exactly the same, because Wales being Wales, we're always being quite difficult with COVID restrictions. We're always like 3 steps behind England and the rest of the UK. So the unis will be really difficult. So we're hoping to do online donor recruitment at our Freshers' Fair, because also we only just got told the day that our stall is today, and the Freshers' Fair is in a week. So obviously we can't organise getting any kit. So we're just going to do online donor recruitment for our Freshers' Fair. And then we're currently in talks with societies and teams about starting in-person donor recruitment. And I have emailed the uni, but I've not had a response yet. But yeah, I think we're just staying cautious because Wales are always a few steps behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think similar with us as well. I mean, we've had problems with the FU pre-pandemic, so even more certainly with the post-pandemic. But we've always, like, historically our first one's always been kind of the end of October time. So we're kind of seeing if we can get to that, but whether things will change anyway, waiting to go in October. But we're kind of making tentative plans, similar things, but because we've got an even smaller committee this year, we'll see how it goes. But we've definitely got the kind of plans. It's just hopefully whether they can go ahead or not.
All right. Well, I think that's just something that groups are going to struggle with across the board. There's just nothing this year that we can say, oh, all SUs are doing this. There's always going to be a lot of variation in how comfortable different unis are with things. So I think it's perfectly fine to just take things step by step and see how they go.
Something that's just come into my mind now, sorry, Neela, is I wonder whether medical schools would be a good place to start for, because they're normally really good for donor recruitment events anyway, because we normally have lots of volunteers within them. But I wonder whether medical schools will be more open to donor recruitment events because people are used to being out in the hospitals anyway, so they're a bit less cautious. Just throwing that out there, might not be, but I'll leave that. Sorry.
That actually leads us quite well into what tends to work. So we were going to open this up. Of course, there's always things that we could say like, oh, go to high footfall places and go to places that have worked for you in previous years. But we're also aware that we haven't been at uni for a little while, at least not in person. So we wanted to open this up and just see whether you guys had any top tips for each other almost of what has worked for you guys really well for donor recruitment.
Do you want me to go first again? I'll just, yeah, I think a good one, even so when I was doing recruitment, so before the pandemic, is going to sport training sessions, because everyone's kind of there. I feel like they almost feel obliged when their president goes, oh, we've got these people in, sign people up. They kind of not felt they have to, obviously, because they don't have to do it, but I feel like they're more likely to be just like, oh, well, everyone's doing it, so yeah, sounds good, I'll sign up. I think we were planning on doing a lot more of that this year, whether we can or not, but I think they're very efficient in that you can go to something for half an hour and sign up as many people as you would maybe standing on a corner of somewhere for 3 hours. So I think that's probably our best one.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say, that we've got quite good links with like Medics hockey, Medics football, Medics netball, so we always do them every year. And then yeah, we usually just put a stall in the med school building because that gets a lot of people, but then it's like right outside the library, and I think there's quite restrictions on the library at the moment, so I'm not sure whether that logistically would work as well this year. And then I think we're also what's well in the past is there's like a radio in the SU, and sometimes we've got them to play like a little snippet we've pre-recorded about signing up for Marrow. So we're quite tempted to do that again this year, because we've got links with someone who does the radio at Cardiff Uni.
That's a great link to have.
Yeah, I think for us, the medical school has been probably one of our best ones, just because of the way it's laid out. We've managed to get people after lectures and things. It's been quite, I think again it's different at different universities, isn't it, how their campuses and everything are laid out, but definitely like the medical school. And I think also it's when we've done other societies and they've like been holding events and like joint events, and if everyone's like both got an interest or an investment in it, that's what's worked for us. I think so. Like the ISOC, like the Islamic Society, is part of one of their weeks where they like work with like the charities and things like that. That worked really well for us, one of those events.
Yeah, and I think in my experience, just to come back to the different societies and sports clubs, making a competition out of anything at university works so incredibly well. You wouldn't, like, people just get really competitive about winning things for their teams. So that's always a really fun option if you've got lots of people interested, especially during Hero Week. These things seem to work really well. And if you are in an area where there's maybe a second uni or uni nearby, if your uni's been a little difficult, you can look at branching out and maybe running a donor recruitment event at a nearby university. If you need any help getting in touch with anyone, we're here for that as well. But it's always really fun to open up almost like a completely new pool of potential donors and lifesavers. So that could be a really fun thing to do as well.
I think it's going to be. Go on, Eloise.
No, I was just going to ask, if we were to do it at a different uni, would we literally just be able to use the same sign-up link for like ordering the kit and that sort of stuff? And just, I mean, we obviously need to get permission from the uni and stuff, but would we just be able to do it same way as we would normally?
Yeah, so ordering supplies and using your link would be exactly the same. The only thing that would be different is getting different risk assessments and getting sign-off from different unis. So admin and safeguarding, not safeguarding, but COVID safety and health and safety, that would have to be checked over, but supplies would be the exact same.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think like we were starting to do that before the pandemic hit with Staffs Uni, which is the other uni here in Stoke. And I think it was because I think someone else helped us organise it the first time, and it worked really well, and we had lots of plans, and they all got like pushed over, and we haven't really gone back to them. But I definitely think it was really good to at least hopefully make some kind of steps in there. So yeah, I recommend.
And Leeds, you've done stuff in the Met before as well, haven't you? Because there's quite a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, our unis are so close by. It's sometimes hard to book there just because for some reason things seem to get lost in communication. But when we do get there, they've got quite good space for it.
I think it'll be really interesting this year to see what happens. Oh, hi Tanvi, if you've just joined us. Hi.
Just come back from placement. Sorry, I'm late.
Don't worry at all. We'll just stop for a second, and at the moment we've just been talking about donor recruitment, but do you just want to introduce yourself and what group you're from and how long you've been involved quickly?
Yeah, so I'm from Lancaster, and I've been with Marrow since my first year. I'm currently in my third year, and I'd loved Anthony Nolan's work since sixth form actually. So that's when I signed up to the register myself. And then, I saw Marrow at Freshers Fair and I was like, absolutely, I want to get involved in this. Signed up as a volunteer. Then last year I was a donor recruitment officer, which was obviously difficult having no events in person. But hoping, this year we'll go a bit more as planned. Yeah.
Fantastic. What a nice progression into Marrow from school.
Yeah,
Marrow. It's really good. You can work out who everyone is by their names, because we've all changed their names to the name of their.
Right, I will do the same.
And we've just been talking about like what works in terms of donor recruitment, and I was just going to say that'll be really interesting to see what happens this year, because obviously there's the challenges in place in terms of still restrictions for COVID and locations not getting back to us, but one of the opportunities this year is, because we've not really been recruiting on campus for 2 years, there's almost 2 years worth of students who might be interested who we won't have picked up on last year. Because I know that at some of the bigger recruitment universities, like Leeds, for example, these might have like 2 good years of donor recruitment, and then it'd be really harder to recruit for a year because you've sort of picked up so many of the students. Whereas this year, because last year there was not that much recruitment on campus, it'd be interesting to see whether there's loads more people who are wanting to sign up. But that's what we're hoping for. Fingers crossed.
Lovely. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. We really appreciated that you are participating that much. Hopefully we can keep that up, but for now we will move on to fundraising. We're not going to go into a lot of depth with fundraising because we have another fundraising role workshop coming up, and we've got a small fundraising workshop running that can be watched on YouTube after this, and there's also going to be fundraising sessions at the conference. So it's covered in a lot of detail, but we will do just a little recap of what's been happening with fundraising. And hi, Serena. Yeah, so fundraising is super important for Anthony Nolan to keep on providing their life-saving support. As you guys know, not only does the money raised grow the stem cell register and help fund research and support from clinical nurses and specialist teams, but it also obviously helps get people onto stem cell register, get research going, all that kind of stuff. So just to put it into numbers, why it's so important. On the one hand, £30 could pay for an hour of post-transplant nurse work hours. So our nurses are based in the transplant centres across the country, and they can offer invaluable support to patients and their families after stem cell transplant. So those £30 can really go a long way, that make a massive difference in our patients' lives, in patients' families' lives. And it's just a wonderful thing that we can provide patients with. £40, as you guys know, adds a new person onto the stem cell register. So you can actually help fund the same lifesavers that you're helping sign up. And then finally, £2,000 can help collect cord blood, which is rich in stem cells from mothers who've just given birth. So that's a really exciting thing that Anthony Nolan is working on as well. And that is also what we fund with our fundraising. And since we have started fundraising, Mara has made a huge difference in with all their fundraising. I think these numbers are just from last year alone, but the fundraising that you did in the past year has allowed us, or could allow us, to add 946 new potential donors onto the register, to buy 84,106 swabs. We could fund 1,350 hours of support from specialist Anthony Nolan nurses to help patients with the recovery, quality of life, well-being post-transplant. Or we could give 124 patients access to our telephone emotional support services to help them get the expert psychological care that many patients will need post-transplant as well. So again, really important stuff that you guys are funding, and it's really fantastic to see everybody still so involved with fundraising as well as donor recruitment. But yeah, hopefully that kind of puts it into a little bit more perspective. So how to have a successful fundraising year? It's a bit of an overarching statement, and of course there's no recipe or formula to having a successful fundraising year. We're always going to have to look at individual unis and what works at your uni, but it is really important regardless for you to plan ahead, whether or not you've already got an idea of how your year is going to look like or how well your uni is going to cooperate, anything like that. It's still important to at least have a rough year plan, simply because on the one hand, it's going to help you set targets and motivate yourself and give your teams goals to work towards as a group. But it also means that you aren't going to get surprised by anything, because with Marrow and degree and dissertations and placements, it can get so easy to get really overwhelmed and things just kind of sneak up on you and you're like, oh God, I have 2 weeks to make this thing happen. So having this plan at the very beginning of the year can really help you plan your time and not get overwhelmed at any point. So things that we would recommend to plan right now, or at least have a think about, how many events you might want to run. Most groups do either many small events or just a few big events. I know Zoe, National's fundraising coordinator, tends to recommend 2 large events, large fundraising events per year, and then maybe a couple small ones during quieter times. You could also now already start contacting sports clubs and societies about collaborations. I know lots of you have said you've already done that, so that's really great to see. And also think about the campaigns that are coming up. So very soon we've got Marrowween coming up. Oh my God, it's almost October. We've almost got Marrowween coming up. So that's really exciting. And that's always a really fun opportunity to start fundraising straight away and give your volunteers something new to do as well, and almost get them into the action straight away. Hero Week tends to be more of a donor recruitment campaign, but you can definitely do lots of fundraising, bake sales, all that kind of stuff. Marrow Christmas, always a big fundraising one, lots of backpacks and bucket shakes. People are feeling really generous. I could go on, this list really goes on, but thinking about the campaigns is always a really good way to figure out when you might want to focus more on donor recruitment and when you might want to focus more on fundraising. So at this point, we would again just ask what has worked for you guys with fundraising before, if you have any idea, and whether you guys already have anything planned for the coming year, just to give each other some ideas maybe.
One of our unexpectedly kind of most successful ones was a glitter stall. So the union night is called Fruity. It's on a Friday, which is mad because they're doing that, but they won't let us do donor recruitment in the union because of social distancing, which is strange. But we do love a Fruity glitter stall because we got a contactless machine as well. So we were charging £2. It was really easy, obviously really quick, and people, and especially freshers, just love having a bit of glitter on the face for a night out. So if we found that really good, and obviously we have done bake sales and things in the past, which do sometimes work, but you think the upfront work is so much more for something like that, and people don't always have time. And we actually did also a speed dating for Valentine's a couple of years ago, and it wasn't just romantic, we also did platonic, so it was nice to get a nice mix and just get people mingling. I think that raised quite a lot, but also we got a few volunteers from that because it was just quite a nice social event. Yeah, so those are 2 of our kind of best ones.
We've got connections with a pub nearby, and we always do a pub quiz, usually around Valentine's Day. Every year we usually have a raffle or an auction at the same time, so it's kind of 3 events in one, which always works really well for us.
Similar to that, we did a pub quiz in first when I was 2 years ago for Christmas time, and that worked really well. We all got our most of the exec just got their friends and friends of friends, so that worked really well. But pub quizzes I think are really good.
I think just to echo what Martha was saying, it's really hard because everyone doesn't really have that. I think we have found that a lot when, this was in first year, so 2 years ago, sorry, we don't have any cash. So that was always the issue, but to our machine is really helpful.
I lost you a bit at the end there. Could everyone else hear her all right, or was it just me?
I think it was quite broken up for me as well.
Right.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi's not the best.
Oh, I can hear you now, clearly now.
Serena, as well, you just missed out the introductions. If you want to quickly introduce yourself and say, obviously, what Marrow Group we can see already, but also just how long you've been involved in Marrow as well.
Yeah, love to. Sorry, I didn't come to you. My friend had a family issue, so I was helping her. Basically, part of Manchester Marrow. I'm in my 3rd year now, somehow. Honestly, time has escaped me. I started volunteering in my 1st year, but then last year I was also president. Doing more in-person events, active, and I'm really looking forward to it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Lovely. Is there anything else on fundraising at all that anyone wanted to add, or?
I just have a question for, sorry.
No, go on.
So for Martha, and I think someone else mentioned the contactless. How do you go about that? Because that's a really good idea.
I'm not sure about Serena, but I think I can find out what brand it is because it's in our cupboard, so I couldn't tell you what make it is. But I think it was just offline. I think we did buy it. It wasn't expensive, so it's just kind of a little square thing, and you have to have an app on your phone, so you type in like the price, and then it automatically does it. Like there's no screen or anything like that. So it must be quite cheap. And I think we claimed it back, but it was a couple of years ago. But I go to the box some point this week. I can take a picture and send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be very much.
I can check with the.
Us, we've had like a
Sorry, we've got a slight delay. Sorry, Serena, go on.
Sorry. With us, it was a bit confusing because our SU was kind of strict with what we could use. So we actually don't have one again now because they changed what we're allowed. So we need to go through a different system now. It's a bit confusing. So actually, that would be great if you guys could send what you're using. If we're allowed to use that one.
Maybe if you could post it into the president's Facebook group for everybody, that could be really helpful for everyone.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll see if I can find it.
We'll speak to
Yeah,
the coordinators as well. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to this as well, but they might have some advice on which is the best one to get and also how to expense that and stuff. So if you post something, I'll give Gemma a heads up and she can post something as well.
Yeah, that was partly one of my questions as well, because I think we did a glitter night and it was really good, but again, when people don't have the money and then the coins and things like that, it's obviously a lot harder, and then they go away and you're like, no. But yeah, and I think one of our biggest fundraising events, which obviously is one of the things you have to get people signed up for, is we did the Royal Parks half marathon. That was always one of our things. Obviously, you've got to convince people to do it, but no, it was really fun doing that.
I very stupidly signed up to a half marathon a long time ago. I bailed 100%. I got to like 3 months before and I had a nervous breakdown over having to run longer than 3 kilometers. I was like, I can't do it. So massive respect for anybody who can. Outside of what you guys just said, which are all absolutely fantastic ideas, I always feel like I'm just talking to people who, like I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are all hugely competent, but just as some inspo, some things that other groups have done. For example, Glasgow Marrow has done a cookbook, which by now I'm pretty sure is Marrow famous, and lots of other groups are doing it as well. But that was really well received, especially when naked calendars couldn't go ahead because of social distancing. So if your group, if your uni is still being difficult with social distancing, then you can always opt for something like that. We already spoke about challenging societies to take on their own challenges. So Plymouth Marrow did a really fantastic one that you can see on the left, and Belfast Marrow sold handmade Christmas puddings because I think one of their grandmas helped out and they got into the newspapers. That was really, really adorable around Christmas time. And then challenges, we already said half marathon, but also Miles for Marrow and the Razor Swab campaign. These things have been really fantastic, and lots of groups have been participating in that. So just as an example, I think Warwick took part in Razor Swab and they raised over £2,000. People played harps, people built 1,000 paper cranes. There were 500 press ups in 10 days and so on and so on. And lots of other groups got involved in that as well. So that's really fun to see as well. And you can always think outside of the box if those kind of things aren't your thing or don't work with your group for whatever reason. You can do virtual runs, movie nights, bake-offs. I know that September just gone was Blood Cancer Awareness Month, so lots of people did walking together, saving lives, and while it might be a bit late to get involved with that now, and lots of challenges throughout the year. And if you're interested in something like that, you can get in touch with your fundraising steward and ask whether they have any ideas about upcoming events. You could take inspo from Truro and Exeter Marrow, who did like a sponsored bike ride recently and had lots and lots of people get sponsored for these things. We've had countless bake-offs and competitions and all these kind of things over the past year, and with Marrowween coming up, we're really hoping that we're seeing some more pumpkin carving competitions coming back. So if that's something that you might want to do as a more virtual kind of fundraiser, that would be really fantastic. And a big last one I want to mention, which can be extremely intimidating and not necessarily for the faint of heart as a head shave. You obviously always have to have someone who's super willing and super keen to do it, but when people are happy to do that, then that's always a massively lucrative fundraiser. I know Plymouth Marrow does their Valentine's auction every year, and I'm pretty sure that there are multiple people every year who shave their head. I don't know how they get so many people to do it at once, but you know, it's an option if you ever want to take advantage of that. And that is that on fundraising and donor recruitment updates from the year. Just to let you guys know before we move on, if you have any questions at any point, please don't wait for us to finish. Just throw them out there. Like we said, it's totally informal today. We're just trying to be chatty. So if you have any questions at any point, just interrupt us and we'll get answered as best as we can. But on that note, I shall hand over to Charlotte on all things Madmin.
Yeah, so I'm afraid some of this is more interesting than others, but some of it we absolutely need to go through with you just to make sure that you've had the full training. So included in Madmin as well is our safeguarding and GDPR, and they are things that as presidents you need to receive the training on, and we need to also formally recognise that you've had that training. So it will be marked against your records, which we do have internal record for you as well in terms of your training. So bear with me when I go through that information. It is a bit reading off the screen for us to know. So starting off just a bit about who you can contact for things. So we have a really good team both in National Marrow and at Anstey Nolan who are here to support you. We know that, you know, taking on a president role is massive and can have real challenges throughout the year, as well as lots of things to celebrate. So we want to make sure that you know we're here for you every step of the way, and anything that you need, you can come to us. You're not out there alone. You also have each other to support. So make sure you call on each other. So a big part of that is the National Committee. So see, Neela was on the National Committee, but she had to step down when she joined Anstey Nolan staff. But at the moment we have who everyone that you can see on here. So Ellen, Zoe, Amy and Zarnaz. A new Marrow committee will be put in place on Saturday. So I won't spend too long talking about these four, but you will have received an email today as well about voting in your new National Committee. We have had not as many people go for national this year as previous years, and we sort of thought that was expected with people coming back to university and trying to work out what university life is going to be like. But I'll give one last sell. If you are interested in the National Committee next year, there are still a couple of unfilled positions, which we will be advertising again post-conference. So if it is something you're interested in, please get in contact with us or the National Committee or Neela, who has lots of experience on national, to find out a bit more about that. So this is the current National Committee, and they can help you in lots of different ways. And this is the Marrow team. So that's me, who is the manager of youth programs, and then within the Marrow team, within the donor recruitment team, is Charlotte, Holly and Neela, who's also here. So you can get us on marrow@ansteynolan.org for anything donor recruitment and anything more generally Marrow as well. So as well as having a general team, you'll also have a steward within that team. So you'll either have Charlotte, Holly or Neela. And if you don't know which one of those is your steward, then let us know and we'll make sure we can put you in contact with them, because they will be chatting to you in a lot more detail this year. And then on top of that, there's also the fundraising team. So Gemma, Kira and Lindsay. So they all will also, there'll be an individual within that who will steward you, and also you can contact them through our Marrow email. We'll pass on anything at marrow@ansteynolan.org to contact them in the fundraising team as well. The only other person that you can also call on is a new member of staff that we're going to have in place. There used to be Jose and then Nick, for those of you who've been around for a long time. But you can get them on fulfillment@ansteynolan.org, and that's for anything related to donor recruitment, supplies, deliveries, collections. So if you need to change your address, for example, where you've ordered supplies, or you need to up your supplies or cancel an event, then all emails for that can also go to fulfillment@ansteynolan.org. Anything as well to do with expenses, they can come through to the Maro Anthony Nolan. So you guys will all have expenses post-conference this weekend. So do get in contact with us on that main email if you've got any questions as well. Next one. So as well as via email, also hopefully you're all following UK Maro on the main Facebook pages and on Instagram. You all, I think, responded to the President's Facebook poll, whatever it's called. So you should all be in that Maro group, but there's also groups for donor recruitment, fundraising and comms and campaigns. So please encourage your respective people from your committee to join those groups. They have been maybe a bit more quiet last year than in previous years, just because of different types of activity, but we are really hoping to use those again for that peer-to-peer support and idea sharing over the coming year. And then, so this is just a bit of administration. Have all of you, don't worry about turning mute off, but just maybe shake your head if you've already done your affiliation agreement. Okay, just one maybe slight nod from Eloise. So you should have your affiliation agreement in your inbox, and it's really important you get that back to us as soon as possible. So that allows you to be covered by our public liability insurance for running all of the events that you have on campus. So that means you're covered for insurance and for fundraising as well. There has been a very slight change to it. It's quite a long document to read through. You know, it's very written in legal jargon, I'm afraid, but around safeguarding issues and also some changes to do with GDPR arrangements now when no longer part of the EU. But apart from that, there's been no further changes in terms of the affiliation agreement.
I was just going to say, I think that'll probably been sent to the who is meant to be president this year. So could someone send that to me, please?
Definitely.
That would have been sent to the inbox of Leeds Maro. So that didn't go to presidents, it went to the collective inboxes, but I was going to send out a reminder anyway, so that should come through soon again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it might have got lost in that inbox, Martin, if you've not seen it, so yeah, if you could look out for it.
Sorry, with the collective things, we can't get hold of them anymore, right? Because I know it doesn't let me log into our collective Cure one anymore.
So what should be happening is that you should have your individual email now, which should be something like bev.king at ukmaro.org. So if you log in via the Outlook app or on 365 on the web app, you can go onto your profile in like the top right corner and click open another mailbox, and then you put in kiel@ukmaro.org and it should let you automatically in.
Okay.
So everybody with who's associated with the Kiel Maro committee now, who has their individual email, should now have access to the collective inbox at the time. So they're all linked now.
Okay, cool. And just because I think one of the members of the committee was saying she wasn't sure if she could get onto her individual one, if she didn't, who would be the best for her to talk to about the individual Maro?
If she drops the Maro inbox an email and just say, I can't get onto mine, we can make sure that she gets access to that and gets her details sent out.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And that'll be the same if you get new committee members throughout the year as well, if you need that as well. Great. So I'm just going to go through some safeguarding training with you. If you've been president before, you might have had some basic safeguarding training with this, but we'll go through this information, and it's really important that we make sure you have it. Obviously, as being presidents of groups, you do have quite a lot of responsibility for your committees and volunteers, and it might be that you do see something that needs some safeguarding steps to be taken throughout the year. I think the more that we all think about safeguarding, the more that we realise actually there are steps that probably need to be taken that we wouldn't necessarily have thought of a safeguarding issue in the past. So safeguarding, Anthony Nolan's got a responsibility to safeguard the welfare of all children and vulnerable adults who are involved in or affected by our work. And as a volunteer, you might come into contact with young people or vulnerable people, or just any volunteers at all. And as a result of this, you might see or hear things which raise concerns about a person's welfare, and then therefore you're required to take actions. There might even be instances where a disclosure is made to you about someone and you need to know what to do to report that. So it's a responsibility of everyone at Anthony Nolan, whether you're a staff member or a trustee or a volunteer, to report any safeguarding concerns to the appropriate person at Anthony Nolan. So in terms of the appropriate person, that's any of us that we've mentioned before in terms of the Anthony Nolan team can come to. So the reason that we've got safeguarding procedures is to abide by laws and regulations, to uphold our professional and personal responsibility, to promote a child or adult's wellbeing and safety, to prevent abuse occurring, to protect the organisation's reputation, and to protect staff, trustees and volunteers from false allegations. So safeguarding means protecting a vulnerable adult's right to live in safety, free from abuse and neglect. And a vulnerable adult is a person aged 18 or over, who is or may be in need of community care services by reason of mental or other disability, age or illness, and who is or may be unable to take care of him or herself, or unable to protect him or herself against significant harm or exploitation. So there are differences as well in different UK nations. So for example, in Scotland, adult protection starts at 16 years old. So it's different in Scotland. So what are the aims of safeguarding? So the aims of safeguarding are to stop abuse or neglect wherever possible, to prevent harm and reduce risk of abuse or neglect, safeguard adults in a way that supports them in making choices and having control of how they live, to promote an approach that concentrates on improving life for the adults concerned, to raise public awareness so that communities as a whole, alongside professionals, play their part in preventing, identifying, responding to abuse or neglect, provide information and support in an accessible way to help people understand the different types of abuse, how to stay safe and what to do to raise concern about the safety or well-being of an adult, and to address what has caused the abuse or neglect. So there's lots of different types of abuse. I won't run through all of these, but physical abuse, domestic violence, and sexual abuse, as well as things like organisational abuse and self-neglect. So just to go into a few of those in a bit more detail, physical abuse, this is when someone hurts a person on purpose. It can be things like hitting or burning somebody. Neglect is when a person is not being properly looked after and basic needs are not being met. Sexual abuse is when someone is told or forced to take part in sexual activities. And emotional abuse happens in many different ways, and it can affect how a person feels about themselves. So examples of that are someone being bullied or made to feel frightened or in danger. So there's lots of different types of abuse that can happen. So this is what's really important. So we have safeguarding, a full safeguarding policy and procedures, which can all be found online. We'll share again. And that's also linked in all of the volunteer handbooks that are made available to all volunteers when they sign up through the registration form. They'll be sent a handbook, and the link to that is also in there. So all volunteers should have access to our safeguarding policy. So even if you think something is significant, it's really important that you report it and then put it into somebody else's hands. This might be a much smaller part of a bigger story of abuse. And this might be about people affected by blood cancer and will relate to behaviour of staff, trustees or volunteers, or working practices in place. So never assume that somebody else has seen it or somebody else is going to take that forward. But it's not your responsibilities as individuals to investigate allegations of abuse, but it's your responsibility to report and record those concerns. And we actually have a dedicated safeguarding leads, a team of really senior members of staff at Anthony Nolan who will then decide on next steps. So it's important in all circumstances that you ensure your own safety, that especially when there is clear evidence or harm or immediate danger, call the emergency services, treat all allegations of abuse seriously and report all concerns to a line manager, volunteer lead or safeguarding lead. So reporting a concern, like we just said there, just go into a bit more detail. If anyone is immediate risk, obviously call 999. If the situation involves a child's tour, there's also the NSPCC Child Protection Helpline. Then discuss your concerns with your volunteer manager or anti-Nolan contact. So you've seen all of the different anti-Nolan contacts there. If the person that you're in close contact with is national, then you can always contact them and they will pass it on to the right person as well. And if you can't reach anyone, then you can always contact safeguarding@antinolan.org as well. It might be that you feel it's inappropriate to talk to whoever your steward is at the time, so you can always go to safeguarding@antinolan.org. Concerns should be reported on the same working day where possible, and ensure that detailed written records are made of events. Even if you did call the police or NSPCC, it's still important to report your concern to us so that we can make a record and see if there's any action that needs to be taken from our side as well. So one of the things that could be quite difficult in your role is how to respond if somebody discloses something to you. So when someone discloses something, it's always really important to stay calm and reassuring in the most appropriate way possible. Try to convey that you're glad that they told you, that you believe what you're being told, that you know that it's not your fault, and that you'll do your best to protect and support them. So number one is to receive. So listen to what is being said without displaying shock or disbelief, and accept what is said, but do not comment on it. And then record the information as soon as possible, ensuring that you include the circumstances that led up to this disclosure. Never write what is just your interpretation, but include what they've said to you. Facts. So reassure the person, but don't make any promises that you might not be able to keep, such as everything will be all right, or I'll be able to work this out for you. And something that's really important with that is not to promise confidentiality. So we should never promise someone, oh, well, you can tell me, I won't tell anyone else, because actually it's our duty to pass on that information to the safeguarding team. So never promise any confidentiality when it comes to if somebody is disclosing something to you. But do reassure and alleviate guilt if the person refers to it. It's important that the person hears that they're not to blame. So the next thing is just in terms of your reaction, don't pass any opinion or judgment comments on what you're being told, or ask any leading questions. And do not criticise the perpetrator. So the person may, for example, be in love with him or her, and your criticism could be confusing for them. And it's really important, as I said before, to refer. So it's vital that you can report all your concerns. Like we said before, it's really important that they know that you have to tell someone else, so you can never promise to keep it a secret. If somebody says to you, for example, can you keep this a secret if I tell you something? It might, and you say no, it might be that the person chooses not to tell you, and they obviously have the right to do this, but they'll hopefully tell you when you're ready. You should not pressure them to tell you or give them false information that you won't pass it on. Next one. So after a concern has been reported and logged with anti-Nolan, a safeguarding record form will be filled out by the person who it's reported to, and the details will be reviewed to see if any further action is needed. And you can request an update on the outcome from the designated safeguarding lead. And if for some reason you're not satisfied, then there is another next step as well, where you can go to a designated safeguarding director. So we have a really clear structure in place for making sure that everything's dealt with by the proper channel. As I said before, it's really important that you ensure your own safety. And if you ever feel at any risk, it's important you put yourself first and leave the area before reporting your concerns. It also might be that by having something disclosed to you, you feel like you also need some support after that, and that's something that we can provide. So please let us know if something happened and then you need some support as well, and we can provide that to you. So in summary, safeguarding is the responsibility of everyone. Please, as presidents, make sure you have a read through all of the safeguarding documents and you know how to look out for signs of abuse. Always report it. It's not your job to investigate yourself. Call 999 if you're in danger. And if you have any questions, please speak to your volunteer lead. And also, just to sum it all up, it's everyone's responsibility but we're here to ensure that your role is as simple as possible. By following the steps that we've laid out here, you can ensure we can do our bit in keeping everyone safe. Most important thing is just to raise any concerns as soon as possible. Has anyone got any questions at all about safeguarding? And also, if you do have any questions that you don't want to share with the group, then that's obviously fine as well. You can just follow up with that with me at a different point.
All right. Well, that was a bit heavy, so we'll take a break here. Maybe just for the sake of having, like, giving you more of your evening, we'll say come back in 10 minutes instead of 15, and then hopefully we can finish up a bit earlier. So if we come back at 8 past, is that all right with everybody? Fabulous. I'll see you then. All right, committee management. So this part's more about your role specifically rather than Maro and Maro responsibilities. So we won't go into loads of depth again because there are still other workshops coming up that will cover more specific aspects. So for example, we've got a leadership workshop coming up at the conference. We've got committee management and volunteer management workshops separately. So if you want to have a look at any of these in more depth, you can go to those. And if you can't make any of those, we also have recordings of previous year's workshops on our YouTube account. So you can always ask us for the links of that. But I will just get right into it. So I'm sure you guys know what your role is supposed to be, and every committee has different responsibilities on different committee members. But generally, the president of a society is the leader of the group and the person whom everybody will turn to for advice and guidance. It is your role to make financial decisions about your plans, to chair committee meetings, make sure that your committee is able to get on with their roles effectively, that Maro is properly represented to the public, and also just make sure that everybody's happy in their role, everybody's comfortable, and that the committee is running smoothly. It is the most challenging role on the committee for many reasons, but it's also one of the most rewarding roles, and I can say that from my own experience. There is nothing just like knowing, that you've just done something really incredible, that you were the reason why another event went ahead successfully, that people are working hard and doing things that you yourself came up with. These things are really, really exciting, and it makes all the effort worth their time. And I think it's one of the few roles where you really do get out what you put in, or at least in most scenarios. If you do ever get stuck, please, like I said, it is a very challenging role nonetheless. Do not hesitate to ever get in touch with your Maro rep or with your national rep. We are always here to help for that exact reason. So, I think I'm actually one too far ahead. I don't know. Oh well. It is really important to also be aware of the different resources that we have in place for you as presidents. So whether that is the Ready to Roll guide, the president's Facebook group, or other presidents and other groups with presidents. We do want you guys to network across different Maro groups. Some groups collaborate when they're near each other, but these sessions and these workshops are also there for you guys to get to know each other a bit better, because in the end, who's better to give you advice than another person in that exact situation as you are? Many of us have been out of uni for a little while. The last time I was on a local Maro group was 2 years ago now. So even though I've been involved with Maro, there is still a tiny bit of a gap between what we've done and what you guys are doing now. So we do really want to encourage that you guys talk to each other as well and look for help from each other. Some really good leadership skills are, and just generally good skills to have as a president, good communication skills. That's because you will need to be the person who upholds communication between the different committee members. You will be the person that is responsible that everything is communicated back to the committee, whether that's information that we as Maro pass on to you, or whether that's information that needs to be passed on from one role to the other. You're going to be the one initiating committee meetings. So these kind of things really need kind of high level communication skills, and they need you to constantly be encouraging that communication, because otherwise things are going to get lost. Another thing that's really important is organization and time management. We spoke earlier on about planning your year, and that's going to come back to you every single day of the year. You just need to be aware of what's going on around you, what everybody is currently up to. You kind of need to have an overview of where everybody in the committee is at. And of course, I'm not saying you need to micromanage everybody and constantly know every single step of the way, but it is good to have a general idea of what's going on and when your next goals are and when they are on the calendar. So organization and time management skills are really key. And of course, positive attitude and confidence. We don't expect everybody to be a super confident president from day one. These things will come with time, but you are going to be the person who's trying to motivate your team and to initiate positive attitude within the team to keep going. And that tends to be a little trickier, for example, when it comes to semester 2, just starting. People come back from Christmas, they're a little exhausted, exams are coming up, all that kind of stuff. So these are kind of the key times where you'll need to motivate your team. So positive attitude and some sort of confidence is always going to go a long way there. And then problem solving. I mean, that one's doesn't need a lot of explanation, but if there's ever a time where somebody on your committee is going to get stuck with a task, they will be the person coming to you. And while we're always here to help you with problem solving, there is a certain element that we do expect, that we do think that you guys are able to take on yourselves. And that's also something that you can take away from this role and later on put on CVs, and that you can take away and use in your daily life, because we do want you to grow through these roles as well and develop as people yourselves. And then finally, patience, empathy, and tolerance. These really do go back to positive attitude, to being the person that oversees the committee and an approachable person that your committee feels comfortable with. And something that I just want to bring up that is not on the slides is our Marrow values, which I think are a really good guiding point almost to come back to as a president, which are passionate, fun, generous, inclusive, and understanding. And these are really great values to work by as a president, and they're always really good to come back to when you think about what to include into your role and how to act as president. So I know that not everybody has been president before, and if you're new, then this is maybe especially helpful, hopefully. But if you've been a president before, even if you've just been on a committee for anything else, doesn't need to be Marrow. We just wanted to know whether you guys had any top tips, any previous experience of committees that have worked really well, or leaders that you've had that have been really, really good leaders, and for what reasons.
I think just making sure that each member feels valued and that you're really thankful for their time, because obviously, like you said before, it's an extra commitment on top of your studies. So even just giving an hour to volunteer is great, but it's just, I think it's more personal though when you don't just message on the group saying well done everyone, but personally messaging someone and saying like, I think you did a great job. And even if you can give like a specific example of what they've done, it really shows that not only are they thankful for what you've done, but like they've noticed and you've noticed and recognized a specific thing, and they feel really valued. So I think that's really important, because like a happy committee just will bring like a happy, more environment, and it does better in the long term. So yeah, I think that's really good to do that.
I think if there's one thing that Marrow preaches almost like in every single session that we run, it's just like reward and recognition. Tell your volunteers thank you, tell your committee that they're valued, because it's exactly what you said. It's so important to make people feel recognized and if they're valued and important in what you do, because otherwise you're not going to get a sense of group achievement.
I think also what I thought is like, don't be afraid to like delegate and not tell people what to do, but just like say, oh, do you mind doing this? Because I think it's quite hard at first, especially quite often committees come from friendship groups and stuff like that. But don't be afraid to just, be like, oh, do you mind doing this? And, as long as you kind of give clear things, and, if they feel that they can't do it or whatever, that you're approachable to come back, then yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Really good. I think it's so important to delegate so that you guys can, not have Marrow take over your entire lives as well, and you don't struggle and burn out, so that you get the support of the rest of the committee. But it's also really good for the people that you're delegating to, because there's a reason that they've joined up to committee or joined up to be volunteers, and that's because they want to get involved. So most people will be happy if you delegate something. I know that a tip that somebody shared at a past conference, which I thought was really good, is if you've got friends who are on the committee, then communicate with them in 2 different ways. So, for example, if you're asking them to do something and you're having to chase them up for it, or it can be a little bit awkward, do all of that on Facebook Messenger, and then have your like, hey, do you want to go for some pints, or here's a funny meme of a dog, happening on WhatsApp. And it sort of just separates it out so that you can continue having that like fun friendship with somebody, but at the same time, when you're trying to delegate and you need to get stuff done and you maybe need to have like strict deadlines, just having 2 different communication channels can work quite well for that, so that you can sort of separate it off, and it doesn't have to take over your friendship if you're trying to manage people. I like that tip that somebody had put in before.
Any other thoughts at all? Okay. So I've got a couple kind of common scenarios from committees, if I manage to paste them into the chat. Let me see whether that works. It does not. Okay, that's helpful. Okay. Just bear with. We'd usually break off into breakout rooms here, but I'm not going to do that because there's not that many of us. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second, because I do have it here. 1 second. And then I'm going to put in 4 scenarios, and you can pick as a group 2 that you would like to just chat over. It doesn't need to be for very long at all. Just a couple thoughts on each, I guess. There we go. Number 1. Number 2. Are they coming up in the chat?
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, it would be good if I actually paste that one. There we go. So yeah, just pick 2 or even just 1 if you want to go, but in more depth. Just one that you feel like you might be struggling with more this year, or that's a big concern of yours, and just see what other people might think about it. I like to call this marotherapy because that's certainly how I used to use it. So yeah, just see what scenario might work for you.
For the 4th one, I think because obviously we've all done the thing where you come to your first event and you feel really nervous because you don't know what the heck you're doing. I just think it's always a good idea to get newer volunteers or newer committee members, even because obviously some people join committee and haven't had that much volunteering experience, shadow someone for a little bit, and then just ask them how they want to approach it, because I think also it's a bit, some people don't like if they're doing it for the first time and they've got someone stood next to them listening to them. So I think just if you kind of let them shadow an older committee member for a bit, and then once they've been doing it for a while, ask them how they want to do their first few ones, if they want you with them, or if they'd rather you just be nearby if they have any questions. I think that's always a good way to do that, because I think there's always, obviously you come to the Give It Goes and do the training, but it's one thing being told what you need to say and then actually stopping random people in the street and in uni and trying to have a conversation with them.
Definitely.
And I think that really links well to what Serena said earlier on about following up as well. Just once they've done their first event, message them after and say, hey, I know this was your first event, but you did really great. Is there anything you still wanted to chat about? Were you comfortable? Is there anything that you feel like you might need more training on? So yeah, that's a really great point. There any other scenario that you guys maybe feel concerned about? And you don't even need to stick to this one. I mean, if there's any committee issue that you can think of right now that's on your mind, then please do feel free to chuck that on instead.
For the 3rd one, I think that maybe just talking to them directly, just to ask if it's an issue because they don't feel confident enough, or they just don't know enough about Marrow to feel like they could tell someone else about it at a donor recruitment event. And then maybe something underlying that's nothing to do with Marrow or university or something, and maybe that's probably where like you need to, the whole thing that Charlotte was talking about, safeguarding, maybe it's an issue there. But I think just being a friend for them and understanding that it's probably, they also need help like time managing with work or something. So I don't think it's a big issue that they haven't helped just yet. It's probably just them needing time to figure things out and for you to be there for them if they need you. And you can always just say, oh, let's try today for like an hour or even just 10 minutes. So like slowly easing them into it so they feel more confident.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're exactly right in terms of not assuming that you know why somebody isn't doing something or not signing up for something or doesn't want to, like it might be something completely different. And if you go in there open, then people can be honest with you back, which is really great.
I think exactly as you were saying, like some people are on committee because they've like done a few things before but might not be confident on it. And I think like once you've been doing Marrow for a long time, you forget how nerve-wracking it can be when you don't really not used to what to say and like what to do and everything like that. So yeah, absolutely, like checking in there, all right, and checking like offering maybe, oh, like should we do one together, like that kind of thing.
All right, lovely. Thank you guys for engaging in that. I appreciate it. I know these scenarios can sometimes be a little artificial, but like I said, if there's ever anything that you guys feel like you'd like to speak about or want any advice on, just chuck it in the mix, because I'd love to hear other people's opinions on it as well. So little tips and tricks just on managing a committee still. So we just spoke about supporting others personally and as friends, but obviously support doesn't need to end at that point. We can, if somebody doesn't feel confident or if you want to develop further, support and training doesn't have to stop. We offer different training sessions throughout the year that people are able to take up if they want to develop further. If you ever feel like there's any training or support that you don't have in place, you can always get in touch with us and say, hey, this is something that I'd really like to do, but I've not seen it offered. Can you maybe put that on? We will try our best to make it happen. Support, if you ever need any help with support or with a more sensitive issue. We spoke about safeguarding, but you can also get in touch with us about these things. And you can distribute the resources we've got on 365 about who to contact if somebody has an issue and doesn't feel comfortable coming to you in the first place. So there are wellbeing resources on 365 on SharePoint that you can access. And then everything else we really already covered. So give them space, give them the flexibility of volunteering, address concerns and catch up informally, be a friend to them. These things you've already covered, so I really don't need to go into a lot of detail with them. And then we spoke about this already when we talked about Marrow values and what makes a good leader. Pardon me. So having a common goal and feeling like your team has a purpose, whether that is because you've given them individual ownership or whether that's because you guys have common goals that you are working towards, common targets maybe for each part of your year, that can be really motivating and drive people to do their best. We spoke about recognition and rewards. So celebrate successes, recognize it when people are doing a good job. These are all things that are kind of the bread and butter of leadership and of managing a committee. And giving people opportunities to develop skills, whether that's by giving them their own responsibilities or again by giving them training opportunities, giving them opportunities to run their own projects maybe, or take on a whole chunk of something by themselves and say, this is your project, I'm not going to be involved in this other than when you need help or to check in. These things can be really effective with volunteers and with committee members alike. And of course, just have fun and make sure that your team is having fun. Now that everything's in person again, we can go back to having socials if you're able to do that. it can be about just little jokes in the chat. It's just making Marrow part of that community again, becoming part of that community, and making sure that everybody feels like they're part of a, not necessarily in friendship group, but just something that they belong to, because that will make it all so much more invaluable. And with that, we are very smoothly moving into volunteers.
So we know that volunteers are absolutely key to being able to achieve what we want to be able to achieve as Marrow groups. And this year, recruitment is going to be even more important than ever. We have depleted volunteer numbers across most of our Marrow groups. There's only a few that have managed to get the same sort of volunteer numbers as before. And we're hoping that hopefully that'll increase after Freshers Week. But, we're not starting the year with the same volunteer numbers as we would have done previously. So I'm just going to go through quickly a few things around this, because you guys have been involved for a long time, but just something that I think is always quite important to think about all the time is just why volunteering with Marrow is so amazing, which then is how you can encourage other people to volunteer. So everyone volunteers for different reasons. I was just wondering whether anyone would be willing to share, why did you actually start volunteering with Marrow? Was there a specific reason that you chose Marrow over anything else? Was it a particularly friendly face, or because of the cause, or has anyone got a particular reason that they volunteered with Marrow?
For me, it's both the cause and the people. When I first came to university, Marrow was literally my favourite thing that I ever joined, and that's where I made most of my friends that I have now, that I actually live with. It's just a great sense of community. But I think the thing that hooked me to even go to begin with was obviously the course. It's a very close topic to my heart, so I think it's an amazing thing to be a part of. And I've never regretted it since.
I'm so pleased. We don't get many people who regret volunteering with Marrow, thank God. Or we don't hear from them anymore if they do. It's really good.
Yeah, I've actually been volunteering for Anti-Nillan for quite a few years, because my cousin had blood cancer, so we've always been volunteering. And then I signed up as soon as I could on Stem Cell Register. So then when I went to uni, it just sort of seemed like a natural progression to join Marrow. And yeah, I joined it since I started uni, and again, I've just not regretted it at all. I absolutely love it.
Neela, I'll put you on the spot as well.
I always get really emotional when I talk about this, and I actually don't have any personal connection to the cause whatsoever, but I tagged along in my first year, and some of my flatmates were like, oh, we're going to sign up to this thing, do you want to come along? It's like, yeah, okay, I guess. I just wanted to make some friends. And I signed up, and I thought the event itself was kind of really cool, and I asked the people at the stand whether whether that was easy to join, and I had a one-to-one training session that somebody arranged just for me because I had missed the training. And I went to one event, and I think that one event I only went to for 1 hour, and then from then on, everybody was so lovely. Everybody was so kind. They followed up with me after, texted me personally, was like, oh, were you comfortable? Exactly what I spoke about earlier. And from then on, I went on to volunteer like 6 hours at every single event that we did, because it was just such a wonderful community. And I felt like at that point, I had really struggled for like 6 months to fit in at uni, and I really felt uncomfortable, and I even thought about dropping out. And then I found Marrow, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is exactly where I feel like I belong. And it was a big part of why I stayed on at uni and why I kept going. And I mean, now I'm here, and I gained loads of skills, and every single job application I've ever written, I've mentioned Marrow in. So I feel like it's helped me so much to grow into who I am today. That's completely inseparable from that. And it's so crazy that, I'm now like that. I started that so long ago, and that was such a tiny coincidence that I managed to find them at the time on campus.
That was lovely. By the way, I didn't prep her on that. It was like that was a pre-prepared speech in terms of why you should be enjoyed. I think all of those reasons and stories are so special, and it also highlights to us what we, you know, if we want people to volunteer, what do we want to provide as presidents or as leaders within Marrow? Like, how can we provide that same experience for people who are coming up to us? So how can we make sure that people know what the cause is that they're volunteering for, and how can you guys create that community feel, that really friendly community feel on your campus that gives, you know, to other volunteers the reasons that you guys signed up. I think if you go to the next slide, Nina, like there's a lot of different reasons that we can sort of sell to people to volunteer, but I think what you guys have talked about there in terms of that sense of community and on campus and the friendships that you gain from it are absolutely key, and not something that you can just write down on a piece of paper, but is something that people will gather from when they come up to you. And in terms of the cause, I mean, I talk about it a lot, but I just think it's unbelievable the impact that you can actually see from the work that you guys do. And I think making that really clear to volunteers is really important. So being able to let them know that they'll, like if they help at a number of events and you recruit 100 people over the year, for example, then you will have saved somebody's life statistically is a pretty amazing thing to think about. And that if they then know any patient who has a match through Anthony Nolan, that there's a 1 in 4 chance that it was signed up by the program that they worked on is incredible too. So I think just making sure that you shout about the cause and the large impact that you have, and then the community, and then there's lots of other things as well. So like we're talking about all of the transferable skills, the charity work looks absolutely amazing on your CV. I get people who were involved in Marrow 10 years ago still asking for references, because even though they've got 10 years of work experience under their belt, their Marrow experience is still something that's absolutely key on their CVs. It's part of a bigger, wider community, lots of fun, exciting things to do. And we now have a Marrow alumni, and obviously number 10 on that, we talked about before, is We Save Lives. The next one. And he's all of the different skills that people can learn and develop while they're involved in Marrow as well. So I think sometimes, you know, we might think about only certain bits of Marrow, like, oh, you can learn how to run an event, but all of the stuff about public speaking, you know, giving presentations, project management, marketing events, increasing confidence, the creativity that might come with a social media post, for example. There's loads and loads of different skills that people can learn through volunteering. So just shouting about them to people is really important, and trying to personalize them to the people that you're talking to. So if you're going into a medical school to try and get volunteers, then they might be more interested in a certain part of volunteering than students who are doing marketing course, for example, and just trying to personalize it as well for the skills that they'll gain. And the next one. So I think you guys all know this, but Freshers Fairs are key for finding volunteers. So lecture shout outs, reaching out to specific courses and sports teams and societies on social media, using that volunteering services, and from what you all guys were all saying as well, bringing a friend along, encouraging people to do that is really important. So I just wanted to shout out, like just if anyone's got any real top tips for how to then keep volunteers once we've actually got them. Has anyone got anything that they made them stay? I guess the sense of community and stuff, but is there anything else that has made them continue volunteering once they actually signed up?
I think, like what everyone said, following up after events and like kind of thanking people for the time and making sure they were happy and felt supported in what they were doing. And then also I think the social aspect's really good, because I think for a lot of people that come to uni, if they don't do a sport or they don't have a set hobby, it's like what people were saying, that you don't already know what kind of site to join. And like me, Marrow kind of made my uni experience, like my first year was kind of the same as I feel like my first year was kind of quite rubbish, and then I joined Marrow and it kind of really made my experience and has made me really enjoy uni since. So doing a range of socials, because I mean I like going out and partying and drinking, but not everyone does. So I think we always aim to do kind of maybe one like going out event, then like one kind of sit down meal, and then at Leeds Marrow we've done for a few years a house crawl. So at committee members' houses we go from one to the next and there's food and drink at each, so you kind of have a more quiet environment where you can actually get to know the committee members and other volunteers, but also like the kind of fun aspect of having a drink and having a bit of food, but not as much pressure of going fully out into town or something. So I think, yeah, just that balance between support in the actual work we do, but then also providing that kind of social space.
I think it's so important, isn't it? That's why people want to, you know, they want to gain that other side of it. I think it's so true. I never really thought about it before, about that fact that if you join like a sports team and stuff, the social side of it is really big for you, isn't it? So why wouldn't it be if you joined a charity society as well as a rugby society? Anybody else got anything to throw in for retaining volunteers?
I know Glasgow did a really great thing over the virtual period, really, where they did like a whole roadmap for volunteers, or roadmap for retaining volunteers, they called it. See whether I can find it and put it in the group afterwards. But it was about how to give them gradually more and more responsibility and work them into potentially wanting to be on committee next. Because the way they outlined it was from the moment you recruit a volunteer, you work them into your committee structure and try and get them to take more ownership of more things. So yeah, just making them feel important and as if they're actually contributing rather than just turning up to one event at a time and coming and going. Giving them actual things to do is really important for getting them to stay as well.
Definitely. Do you want to flick to the next one? Oh, no, I thought if I pressed on that I might be able to change it myself, but not at all. So in terms of retention, just all the stuff we talked about there, so getting them involved, making sure there's meaningful ways for them to help. Regular communication is really important. If people, you know, if you haven't got an event for a few months, so they don't hear from you, they might not realise that there's other stuff going on campus. So making sure that everyone knows what's going on, give plenty of notice, making sure it's also really interesting communication as well. And then being there for the support, being human, making sure they get stuff like volunteer handbooks and ongoing support and training, and they know who to contact. Are all really important parts of retaining as well. I'm not going to ask this question because we've got limited time, but just in terms of recognition, I think we've covered quite a lot of it while we were talking about that. And if you flick to the next slide, like one of the things we're talking about with that is, I think socials, like you were saying there, Martha, are really important for retaining, but also recognition. Like people, you know, if you guys need a bit of budget to buy a few pizzas after people have done a really long event, then that's definitely something that we can provide. So just you just need to check it with us beforehand so we can sign it off. But if you're like, we've got these volunteers that have worked really hard and we want to spend 20 quid on some takeaway for them, then do let us know and we can provide budget so that you can support and recognise your volunteers and things like that, or spend 20 quid on chocolates and stuff for events. So do just let us know if you want to do that and to give out little gifts or for socials. You've talked so much about this already, you don't need to talk about it, but making it personal in terms of those thank yous and making them feel loved with certificates, awards and nice email posts. And remember always that we have like the UK Marrow Volunteer of the Month. So send in your nominations for that, because then they will also get that recognition across the whole of Marrow as well, which is nice. So what's the next slide? Sorry, Neela. Maybe we'll come back to any questions. Yeah, and then so I think if we go on to basically do you have any main concerns for the year that you either want to share and talk about as a team, or we can put them in the chat. Anything in particular that you're worried about? Now is just a bit of time to talk about it, or any questions that you've got for us. And then that's the last thing on the agenda as well, just to manage your expectations in terms of time. So has anyone got any questions or concerns about the coming year? Are you feeling all right about taking on the position, Martha, considering as you were given it a week or two ago?
I'll just real quickly, sorry, I'll stop the recording here in case that matters to anybody.
Yeah,